morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully you can see and hear me. We've had a few technical issues this morning.
Hitches.
What did I say?
Issues.
Hitches. Technical hitches. That's the one. So yes, if you are watching, do please pop a hello in the comments. If you can hear me, please pop a hello in the comments. Because when you have a teenage son that requires a microphone for his gaming, he steals it. So I have a setup tied together with string and gaffer tape this morning. So hopefully you can see and hear me. My computer's being really, really laggy. So it's fine. There's no comments yet though. Talk to me, people. Talk to me. There we are. I don't feel so lonely now. Good morning, Kerry. Good morning, Angela. So yes, hopefully you can hear me and see me. And we have a bit of Eric Cam this morning, although he's asleep. So there you go. It's such a rock and roll dog. Good morning, Maharet. Good evening, Sephora. Interesting background. Yeah, because it's that time of the year, isn't it? For us, not for you. That's what we're going to talk about today. October, magic of October. Good morning, Janet. Good morning, Emma. Good morning, Amanda. And good morning, Eric. You're right there, Eric. You're right there. You're going to say hello. Hello. Good boy. There's a good boy. You go back to sleep. You woke me up. Now you're telling me to go back to sleep. Good morning, Angela. Just on your moon magic full moon meditation. Excellent. Hope it was useful. Interesting background. Yeah, let's have a bit of fun with this. We're trying stuff. That's Eric. You right? Smile for the camera. Good boy. It's a bit early in the morning for him. It's a bit early. I know the feeling, Eric. Know the feeling. Yeah. So for a crack of full moon here at the moment, try to see comet as well, but no joyous clear horizon. You never know. Good morning, Susan. Like the hair. Oh, thank you. I bothered to blow dry it this morning. Amazing what happens when you actually bother to do something, isn't it? I'm not a faff about with your hair type of person. Not my bag. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning. So I thought we would talk about the magic of October. Because it is October, obviously. Because it is coming up to, for the Northern Hemisphere anyway, possibly a witch's favourite Sabbath. Is Samhain your favourite? Interesting to know. And what we can see, you're supposed to be sitting down.
Yeah.
He's not very well. He's been very, very poorly, actually. And for Pete to be poorly and not move from the sofa, we know he's not very well. Bless him. Good morning, Tony. Good morning, Sue. Good morning, Jalala. Good morning. Sunny Sunderland. Bit grey here. Bit grey. Bit overcast. But it is October. So today, magic of October. I am taking Eric off the screen because all he's doing is sleeping. So we'll come back to Eric. In a bit. Magic of October. So I do work with the Sabbats, kind of. But I do work more with the energy of the months, as you will discover in my book, A Witch for Every Season. Got to put that out there, haven't I? So I'm going to run through a few things that are happening in October in my part of the world. Obviously, for the lovely folk on the Southern Hemisphere, you are a bit flipped with the Sabbats, but it's still October, no matter where you are. So what do you do to celebrate this month? Any traditions? Any magic you specifically work? I must admit, I do tend to do sometimes a year reading, sometimes a 6-monthly reading on the 31st of October, just to kind of see, because it happens to be my birthday as well. So I kind of treat it as a let's look and see what's happening, going ahead kind of thing. But there's other stuff happening in October as well. And I like to bring in folklore folk traditions, local traditions, because I think that all adds to the energy of the month. So what do you do in October? How do you celebrate anything in particular? It is a busy background. Yeah, I know. It's skulls. We don't love a skull, eh? Good morning, Susie. Angela, love all the spooky stuff, but I'm weary about magic. As heard, it can be chaotic. I've never found it to be so. Never found it to be so. I think you work your own magic. I think you have your own energy. I think each month has particular energies that it lends itself to, a particular type of magic. October is brilliant for ancestor work. It's also brilliant for divination. So 2 really important energies this month, I find anyway, divination and ancestor work. Good morning, David. Now that it's a strong moon out there, I feel like I've taken something like caffeine that's been hyped up on more caffeine. It's not good, but it feels so right. David, I can't imagine you on caffeine. We're peeling you off the walls. Good morning, Nita. From a very misty format. Yes, I looked out the bedroom window this morning and it was like a scene from Sherlock Holmes. Very misty. Good morning, Trudy. Good morning, Sue. Good morning, Maria. Looking fabulous in green. Going to wear my green Hecate tights today. They sound fabulous. Good morning, Jane. Good morning, Dawny. Sephora. Still feel the veil thin in October, but busy with spring and getting veg in the ground. When raining and doing genealogy and having some great results. Excellent. Obviously, the energies will be different wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in the country. The energies for me down south are going to be different to the energies for someone living up north in England. So it's about connecting with the energies of your land. Jane, gorgeous moon last night. She's always gorgeous, isn't she? She always is. So October, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with October because my birthday falls on Halloween. In more recent years, we've spent the day of my birthday giving sweets out to snotty kids, which is not a lot of fun. I'm a bit like the Queen used to be. I have 2 birthdays. I have an official birthday and my real birthday, so that I can celebrate my birthday without giving out candy to people. But that's just me. Thank you. Go and sit down.
I had a job to do.
Go and sit down. You didn't yesterday. You're a complete sparko yesterday. He's really poorly. Go on, go and sit down. Angela, as children, Dad had us bobbing for apples. I can remember bobbing for apples as a kid. Carved turnips and peeling apples to divine something. Can't remember what. One of them is if you peel the skin off an apple and let it drop, the shape that it forms should form the letter of the first name of your loved one. But I'm guessing, with peel being quite curvy, if it's not an O, a C, or an S, it's not really going to form the letter T, is it? But lots of folklore for October, lots of folklore. Maria couldn't see her because of the clouds. It's cloudy here too. Let's get some of these up. David, a mix. End up celebrating with family, but dressing up as something. Then I do my own thing, mostly ancestry work and divination. To me, that's October. Nailed it. Connection to Beyond the Veil, and then a horror movie. I'm not big on horror movies, I must admit. But yeah, divination and ancestor work, absolutely. I tend to light 2 candles during the Samhain ritual. One for anyone who has passed that year, whether I know them or not, nice. And another to bring the family home. Then hang a tea light outside for them. That's lovely. Perfect. Perfect. Sephora, the rule for birthdays in our house once past 30 is if it ain't got a 5 or a 0, it generally gets ignored. But celebrate the max on 0s and 5s. I'm allowed to celebrate this year then because I'll be 55 this month. So I'm all right then. I love October because I love autumn. and October is full on autumn. I did notice this week in particular, the leaves have started to turn and fall. So although we went out on Wednesday and ended up putting our coats back in the car and stripping our jumpers off because it was so warm, it is autumn. You can see it, you can feel it. So I love the autumnal feel of October. Is it your favourite? Is Samhain your favourite? It tends to be a favourite for witches. I must admit, my favourite is Yule. But there you go. Let's have a look. So, Anglo-Saxon name for October. Winter filleth, which I like the idea of. Old English Anglo-Saxon name meaning winter filling, basically. Making preparations for the coming winter. The other Anglo-Saxon name was, and I'm really, really bad at pronunciations, Windermanneth, which means vintage month. October, because it's from the Roman calendar, oct meaning 8, because it used to be the 8th month in the Roman calendar. This is all information from A Witch for Every Season, just in case you wondered. I am looking at my notes. I'm not just staring into the distance. Good morning, Jackie. Oh, still in bed, shingles, flu, chest infection. Oh no, Steve as well. Yeah, Pete's poorly. Down and out with it. Get better soon, everyone that's feeling a bit rough. There are some nasty colds and flus and stuff going around. Good morning, Tina. Starting to love autumn love Samhain. Yeah. Maria's off to the movies on Samhain to watch classical horror. I wouldn't, but nice. Bit of a worse. Jane, when I was a kid, Halloween was a big nothing. Yep, you and me both, Jane. It was all about penny for the guy. Yes. Warnings on the telly about the dangers of picking up hot sparkly. Yeah, all of the adverts warning about fireworks. Light up the sky with standard fireworks ads. Yep. Fireworks were done and dusted in one night. Yes, how nice was that they were just done and it wasn't spread over the entire year. Not a pumpkin in sight. Nope. Now we have the American commercialization, shops full of orange and black, and a wild, long fireworks season. So the history is a bit complicated, isn't it? Because the whole idea of carving turnips and that kind of thing came from Ireland, went over to America, came back as trick or treat. There's quite a complicated history with it all. But no, we didn't have Halloween when I was a kid. We just didn't. It wasn't really till my mid-20s, I guess, that people started trick-or-treating. But hey-ho. Sue had flu and COVID jabs yesterday, now walking about dragging her arms. Yeah, that's the problem with the jabs, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Lots of poorly folk at the moment. Yeah, we need the elderberry rob, because that's good. Lots of vitamin C. Pete's not going to take it because it's got fruit in it.
Yeah, word.
Yeah, we weren't allowed anything to do with Halloween at home. My mum only got into buying sweets after we were told to care. It wasn't a thing when I was younger. It really wasn't a thing. More flu and COVID jabs. They do take a bit out of you, don't you? Yes. Always think about Blackadder with turnips. Yes, Baldric and his turnips. But that's what we used to carve were turnips, which if you've tried is just a feat and a half. No wonder the Americans went for pumpkins. They're so much easier to carve. So for Halloween has the best costumes for dress up. I think that's why we all rush to embrace it. Possibly, yeah, it's fun. It is fun, but we didn't have it as kids. Our children did. Our children always dressed up for Halloween, and we took them trick or treating. So yeah. Dawny, have to be careful with honouring ancestors. I have an ancestor who did dark magic, offering children, so not directing it to that line of ancestors. Had lots of trouble in, but not anymore. Got to pick and choose. So if you are out and about, you will notice that the leaves are starting to turn. The leaves are starting to fall. There's an awful lot of berries out there as well. If you're in the woods, you'll probably see quite a lot of fungi out there as well. It's that time. The spider's webs in the gardens, obviously out there to make us all into garden ninjas. But let's have a look. Let's have a look at some of the festivals. So if you are London based, keep an eye out because the Pearly Kings and Queens have their big harvest festival. First Sunday in October, so we have missed that one, but apparently they still hold it, but it started in the 1800s. If you aren't familiar with the Pearly Kings and Queens, do have a look. It's a fascinating tradition, all to do with pearl buttons. And some of the outfits they wear are absolutely amazing. And the Pearly Kings and Queens, the group, do an awful lot for charity. So do have a look out for them. And of course, that brings in the energy of buttons. And you know I like working magic with buttons. So think about buttons in your spell work. I did a talk on it ages ago. It's on the YouTube channel if you want to have a look. One tradition for October, which I love, is Devil's Blackberry Day. Once October the 10th arrives, so we've passed that, so you can't pick blackberries anymore. You're no longer allowed to harvest the blackberries because on the 10th of October, the devil either spits on them or pees on them, depending on which folklore you listen to, which makes them poisonous. What it actually means, I think, is that the blackberries are past the point of, being good now. So it possibly was inspired, apparently, by a story that tells of St. Michael throwing the devil out of heaven, and the devil was said to have landed in a blackberry bush. Who knows? But yeah, blackberries, don't pick them now. They're way past their best. Another one is Punky Night, which is from the southwest of England. The last Thursday in October is Punky Night. Stems from a story of local men going to a fair and getting drunk. So drunk they couldn't find their way home. The wives set out to find their wayward husbands, carrying punky lanterns with them. So I love this. The punky was made from a mangel-wurzel. It's a real thing. It is possibly the best named vegetable ever. What it actually is a type of field beet. So a bit boring what it actually is, but the name is brilliant. But they carved the mangel-wurzel to make it into a lantern. So now apparently in some villages still, leading up to Punky Night, children carve beets or pumpkins, scoop them out like we do with pumpkin lanterns, really. But they carry the lanterns around the village and they ask for gifts of candles. I would imagine these days they probably ask for money or sweets rather than candles. But I like the mangel-wurzel. We should all have a mangel-wurzel lantern, I feel. It kind of all ties in with Samhain, doesn't it? Which obviously in the Northern Hemisphere is at the end of this month. It is summer's end, basically. The autumn's full on, the nights are drawing in. Air clocks change at the end of the month as well. They go back. It is the last harvest of the year. It is when they would have started storing stuff away for the winter, our ancestors, but it's also the time for our ancestors. It's the time. You don't necessarily have to connect with them. In fact, you don't have to connect with them at all. It is, or can be, more about just honouring them, remembering those that have passed before us and honouring our ancestors and our lineage and those that have gone before us. And even if you don't know your family lineage, you can still celebrate ancestors as a whole, those people that have gone before. So I think for me that's probably more important energy for the season. I think if you are working with the spirit world, make sure to protect yourself, make sure you know what you're doing. But it can be as simple as putting out some photos of your ancestors. And ancestors, and I have got a couple of photos of my great-grandparents, but it could just be, a parent or a grandparent that's gone over to the other side. When we say ancestors, it kind of sounds like it has to be ancient, but it doesn't. It is about celebrating those loved ones that have passed over. So it doesn't have to be ancient. Got lots here. Let's have a look at these. Nita was brought up in a strict Catholic family, but we always celebrated Halloween. I think my mum was a closet witch. I think there was a lot of those. Jane, if you want to carve turnip, yes, power tools for turnips, definitely. That you don't want to be trying them with a knife. That's just not good. David, isn't trick-or-treating originally Scottish and it was brought over to the US by Scottish immigrants, blow up there and then brought over here? I think it's more Irish, but it's that area. They would have had carved turnips stories vary. Carved turnips with candles in the windows to protect against spirits or to guide spirits. Depends where you look. But yeah, the whole trick or treat as it is now, very commercialized, but the basis of it, I think it's Irish, but there are varying stories. Emma, Halloween wasn't really a thing when I was a kid in the 80s either, like the whole autumnal side, ancestry side. Not sure I enjoy sewing, don't like strangers at my door. Yeah, there is that side of it as well, isn't there? Jalala, sounds like a normal night in the southwest. Not sure about a pumpkin night. Punkin, punky, Punkie, punky night. I like that. There's some good words in folk tales and folk stories. Jane, we've still got blackberries in our garden. I ate one the other day. I know it looked ripe. It was sour. It's because the devil peed on them. That's what it is. Maria, need to put them in salt water as there's usually things living in them. I think that goes with any kind of fruit you pick from the wilds, isn't it? There is a thing called, it's a mangal wurzel. Fabulous name. Yeah. Love it. Jackie, love Samhain, but also love Halloween and everything pumpkin. I like a nice Halloween decoration, some nice ones out there rather than the cheap old tat. Yes, if you look around, there are some good ones, aren't there? So if you are a witch, now is the time to buy your regular home decor. Sephora, with you, Emma, we are very bar humbug about trick-or-treaters, much to my children's disgust, but it's not energy because really just commercial. It is. The trick-or-treating, it is for the kids, really, isn't it? And we did used to do it when they were little. They always dressed up. We always took them around. It was a bit weird because, our youngest in particular doesn't really eat sweets, so he used to just like collecting them. We don't tend to do it anymore, I must admit. Jane, Samhain would be a brilliant night for getting around a spirit board and inviting ancestors. Oh, you please. It is. This is a thing for me. It is supposedly the time when the veil between the world is thinnest. And I think it does kind of open up a doorway. But I think if you work with spirit, you can connect with them anytime. If you've got ancestors you want to connect with, if they're willing, they'll find their way to you anyway. But it is a good time, I think, for honouring those that have gone before. David, favourite celebration this time of the year is Mexican Day of the Dead. Now that's what we should have here. Fabulous tradition. And it is about honouring those that have passed before, not in a kind of morose way, but celebrating those that went before. There are, if you want to have a look on the Kitchen Witch blog, there's a few things. Ness wrote a blog about the Dumb Supper as well, which is quite an interesting thing to do. Jalala, always struggled with the concept of honouring ancestors for various reasons, but more recently had a bit of epiphany in my thoughts on it. Too much explain here, but as animist, it helped me to think about celebrating times past. Yeah, time moves on, doesn't it? The older you get, the faster it seems to move. It has to work for you, though, doesn't it? It has to, And ancestors is perhaps a bit confusing because it could be just honouring all of those lives that have passed over this year, last year, 20 years ago. It doesn't have to be your direct ancestors. Tess thought there was a legend, local lore at Halloween. The idea behind wearing masks and costumes was so the evil spirits could not tell between the living and the dead. Yeah. That is one of the tales. The idea of dressing up was to fool the evil spirits. Indeed. Maria, you usually have a display at Kew with sugar skulls and marigolds. Marigolds are involved quite a lot in the Day of the Dead celebrations. And actually, I use marigold in incense blends and spell working for psychic abilities. I think the marigold has a really, really strong spirit world connection. Jackie, we're known as that house in the neighbourhood, and our trick-and-treaters are so lovely. They only knock if you make it obvious you're into it, and we sure do. Love the kids in their costumes. We are, because I live on the edge of city, we are terraced houses, rows and rows of terraced houses. So brilliant for the kids to do their trick-or-treating. They literally go up and down the roads. But they tend to be very good. If you've got a pumpkin outside, they will knock the door. If you haven't, they tend to leave you be. So we have forgotten what an animist is. I'm an animist too. It is about believing that everything has a spirit, whether it is a plant, a tree, a pebble, a flower. It's all got a spirit. That's animist. And my mum loves the whole trick-or-treat celebration, so we have to compromise. She does a trick-or-treat and I hide. I like that. Do my ritual and then watch a film whilst hiding. That sounds like a good compromise. Good morning, little Miss Nemo. Sephora, my cat spends a lot of time looking at corners and seeding in October. So even though other side of the world, I think ancestors pop in, as the old ones were all from the northern hemisphere. Yeah, but it's opposite of the wheel of the year, though, isn't it? So the veil is thin, whatever part of the world you're in. So that makes sense. Jane, most years I give the trick-or-treat kids not just sweets, but something educational like a pendulum with instructions, a spell, or a leaflet explaining the true meaning of Halloween and how to celebrate it by asking their parents to tell them about their ancestors. Interesting. At least you don't give them tubes of toothpaste or something like that. I've seen that. David, did my family tree the other month and I found all my ancestors are Cornish. Interesting. Very magical part of the world. Dating all the way back to the 14th century. Apparently there's the odd witch dotted down the line. There would be in Cornwall, I would imagine. Nice to know. I'm keeping the tradition going in our own little way. Perfect. Dawny, I honour my grandmother, who I seen last when 3 years old. She warned me that her son, my father, of 83, was in trouble. So I rang from the UK, the Belgian police, and they found him on the floor. Spirit being helpful. Spirit being very helpful. Brilliant. So there is another tradition for October that I like, which I think must be done. This is a new tea flavour, isn't it? Quite nice. Random. So another tradition for October, pudding season. How cool is that? Traditionally, October the 1st heralded the start of pudding season in England. For those of you not in England, that would be dessert season. Doesn't appear to be any official documentation about this, but this time of the year would have been perfect for making puddings. It was the end of the harvest, so meat would have needed to be preserved to keep our ancestors going during the cold winters. And fruits as well would have been preserved. But originally, the pudding was savoury rather than sweet. The word pudding believed to derive from, and I was a bit shocked about this, believed to derive from the French boudin or the Latin botellus. And its original meaning was that of, are you ready for this? Stuffed entrail. I'll have stuffed entrail with custard, please. It literally was stuffed entrails or like a sausage, basically. But over the time, the meat content was added to with fillers such as suet or flour, and it eventually morphed into the suet pudding, which now can be eaten savoury or sweet. So the origins of our delicious puddings with custard were stuffed entrails. Yum, delicious. I've gone off the pudding idea for a brief moment. Little Miss Nemo, bake for trick-or-treaters, but last year I forgot to write a welcome poem for the front door, so I only got one visitor. Oh, yeah, I think they are pretty good, aren't they, nowadays? They do, if they see that the house is doing Halloween, they'll knock. If they don't, if they're not sure, they don't, which is good. It's very respectful, really. Jackie, find Brussels sprouts wrapped in repurposed Ferrero Rocher wrappers is a good trick. Actually, I'd rather have a Brussels sprout than a Ferrero Rocher. Does that make me weird? I love Brussels sprouts. Not so keen on Ferrero Rocher. Yeah, pudding season. We need to bring back that pudding season idea, don't we? Sephora. David, some of my lot were Cornish, but very brave and chased gold to Canada and the USA, then back to Cornwall before trying Australia and finally settling in New Zealand. That is quite an adventure, isn't it? Oh, Maria, yeah. Apple crumble and custard. Crumble. Fruit crumble, one of my favourites. Elvis Nemo, pudding is basically a dumpy thing, but no, instead of stuffing entrails, we stuff pudding cloths. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Tess, my mum brought me up on suet puddings. My nan used to make, she was a very good cook. In fact, she was a professional cook. She used to make steamed suet bacon roly-poly pudding. Oh, it was delicious. I'm quite hungry now, though. My friend, she covers Brussels in chocolate to give out as a trick. No, that is just me. I love Brussels sprouts. I'm not sure Brussels sprouts and chocolate. Jane, stuffed entrails sounds like haggis or sausages made with real innards. Yeah, it is the basis apparently of puddings. Imagine eating a fruity pudding in sausage form. I quite like the idea of that. I think it's like a roly-poly or something, really, isn't it? Yeah. Jackie, from our bedroom windows, we can see a lovely tree with leaves in various autumnal shades, and it's thick fog outside, so autumnal. I love it. It is. We've got very misty out there today. I recently found out my maternal grandmother was Scottish, originally came from Irish Romany, which explains my Celtic. There you go. Threads, all the threads weaving together. Sephora, best thing about autumn is cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. Oh, I'm with you. I love all of the wintry spices. Cinnamon, clove, nutmeg. All of those warming star anise type flavours. Yeah, I'm up for that. Maria, white pudding is fruity tasty. Yeah. I guess you're delving into the black pudding thing now as well. Basically, blood pudding. Lisa, love the bacon pudding in your book. That is my grandmother's recipe. That is where it came from. That was my grandmother doing bacon roly-poly. And of course, yes, spotted dick, steamed syrup pudding. Yeah. Norwegian bloodline. Yeah, we had the DNA done. I am
French.
I am big part English, little small part Scandinavian, and the rest is pretty much German and French and Dutch, that sort of area. So it's interesting. It is very interesting. I was quite surprised, but very interesting. Oh, custard. You've got to have custard with steamed pudding. Probably not haggis and custard, no. Last night was a super moon. It was a big old moon last night, wasn't it? It absolutely was. Sephora, my English stepmom reduced us to mass hysteria when pudding served a spotted dick. We were tweens in our defence. Yeah, my son still laughs at stuff like that. Yeah. Oh yeah, Maria, jam roly-poly. Delicious. Delicious. Ronnie, I've done my DNA. Turns out I'm the most British and the least Dutch, except 1% Native American. Explains why England's my home and feels home. British different to English from the DNA strains, because British covers Wales and Scotland as well. So it probably doesn't matter outside, but to us, it usually does. There's definitions. Maria, did I buy an? I did. I had not the actually ancestry one. It was a different company, I think. But yes, my son had a DNA kit done because he wanted to know his ancestry. He is like 75% English, 25% Scandinavian. He was very pleased. But yeah, so I did one as well, and it was really interesting to see the results. Jane, when we were in the Hebrides in April, we were served something made from black pudding and haggis. We called it blackies. I'm a bit of a. I have eaten haggis on various occasions, usually at Robbie Burns nights. It's strange, not unpleasant, but an interesting taste. I do eat black pudding, but only if it's fried nice and crispy. I really am hungry now. Right. Emma, this sounds very similar to the Bedfordshire clanger. Absolutely. Suet with bacon and onion in one half and a dessert of suet and jam in the other half. Yes, a bit like Cornish pasties, which were made for the miners with a very thick pastry edge so they could hold the pastry, eat the lunch when they were down the mines and chuck the pastry away. The Bedfordshire clanger is a very similar idea, literally like a Cornish pasty, but half savoury and half sweet. Clever idea when you think about it. Nita, brother did his DNA and we were astonished to find we were 53% Scandinavian with English mother and German father. It was quite a shock. No wonder I love Norse deities. I think the DNA things are surprising, but I think they can give a few answers to things as well. Angela loves stodgy puddings. I do. I love a pudding. Yeah. Lisa, 49 still giggle at spotted dip. Can't believe Rich managed to keep a straight face. My whole life is like living in a carry-on film.
You're welcome.
We get that kind of humour the whole time, so I'm actually quite, I'm with it.
Lucky is the word.
I did do a podcast this week that will be coming out very soon, and very, very interesting chat, and the term Homo erectus came up, and I thought I was brilliant at not even smirking. So years and years of practice. Sephora, totally UK map, sprinkle of French, Swiss, but we've got Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and England covered. It's interesting. It's all interesting. Bedfordshire clanger sounds interesting. Had a Welsh Saturday dinner a couple of years ago, but would like to root our more British traditional recipes to keep them alive. I'm all for that. I do this quite a lot on my blog of traditional English, specifically English recipes. We did quite a lot. When we did the Kitchen Witch course on Celtic goddesses, we included quite a lot of traditional British recipes. I think it's fascinating. I think it is absolutely fascinating to dig out those old recipes. Definitely. And of course, for October, we have the Wild Hunt. So the folklore of the Wild Hunt is a tale of a group of spectral figures riding out on a hunt. Suggestion being that they're collecting the souls of the dead to take to the underworld, warriors on horses, packs of dogs following them, riding across the land. Stories tell that anyone found outside would be swept up with the hunt and then dropped miles away. Story was recorded in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, circa 1127, describes a pack of 20 or 30 huntsmen in full cry, riding black horses with pitch black hounds that stared with hideous eyes. Nearby monks heard them and the sounds of their hunting horns. There's a similar story about the Wild Hunt across Europe with slight variations to it, often associated with winter storms or the changing of the seasons, and some of the stories correspond it with Samhain. It's fascinating, interesting story. It's part of their heritage, part of their folklore, really. And I mentioned Dumb Supper earlier. So there is I'm sure Ness wrote a blog on it, the Kitchen Witch blog. But the tradition of a Dumb Supper is to honour those that have passed over. You hold a dinner party basically in complete silence. Not in a kind of miserable way, but in a respectful kind of way. You invite guests and ask them to bring a personal note with them. It's just my phone ringing. Let me turn that off. Get them to write a note to relatives, family, friends that have passed over. Lay your dinner table for each guest, but leave one space empty. The empty space is for spirit. You can place a candle there to represent them. And as each guest enters the room, they stop at the empty place, take a moment to offer the dead, then you sit and eat. You also serve the empty space with a meal as well. No one talks. Once the meal is finished, each guest takes out their note, and one at a time, they light their note from the candle and drop it into a fireproof dish. Everyone takes their turn, and as they do, they leave the room. And on the way out, again, you stop at the empty space and show your respect to spirit. It's an interesting idea. I'm not sure how well I'd cope not talking for an entire meal, but a very nice way of respecting those that have gone before. Lots. Snemo, hubby got me a DNA test for my birthday upon the wrong hints. Looking forward to finding out more about my extended racial heritage beyond Anglo-Indonesian. It's interesting, and I was quite surprised. Jane, my son did the ancestry DNA thing, found he's 37% Viking. I'm a lot less Scandi. Yeah, me too. My son was a lot more Scandinavian than me. So I gave my husband a kit to find out where all this Viking comes from. He's been sitting on this desk for 5 months. Might take a little while to find out about that one. Tawny have an interesting combination. 28% British, 26% Iberian, 26% Scandinavian, 19% Dutch, German, Polish, Romanian, 1% Native American. That is a bit pick and mix, isn't it? Hate the sun, but love the cold, so the Iberian is lost to me. Tina's dogs keep looking at one wall. Yeah, animals pick up on spirit a lot more than we do. Trudy made my besom from summer herbs and fallen twigs hung in the window and hung pressed leaves from it with real pumpkins. But now Samhain is nearing. I've introduced the spooky elements for the grandchildren. Love all cinnamon, maple syrup, pecans in any dessert cake. Yeah. Would love to host dumps up and need more information. If you have a look on the Kitchen Witch blog, Sean S. wrote a blog about it with all the instructions. Now I haven't seen this. Just watched Agatha again on Disney. That was fun and some great broomstick riding. I haven't seen that yet. I've seen good reviews for it, so I will give it a look. Lavender and Lovage website has a lot of old traditional recipes. Nice. Yeah, I'm hungry too. Gonna have pudding for 11sies. Jane, I've got a funny old cookbook with a recipe for horny collops in it. It's made by scraping the velvety stuff off of antlers. Oh, that sounds lovely. I have quite a collection of cookbooks. Quite a lot of them are English, old English recipes, history of puddings and all that kind of thing. It's fascinating. I've got some that are even older recipes too. I have a lot of ancient Roman recipes, ancient Celtic recipes as well. It's fascinating to delve into. Zafora, my understanding with the dumb supper is the courses are served in reverse. The spirit is a mirror image, so that way they know it's for them. I haven't heard that one. We've always done it just forward, but whatever takes your fancy. Maria wants to do my ancestry. It's really interesting to have those ancestry results. Really interesting. David, I remember a couple of years ago I did an ancestral rite for those who had passed during my life. I ran out of candles. That was sobering and powerful. Oh, yeah. This year in particular, from a health point of view for friends and family, has been absolutely rubbish. So, yeah, let's turn it around now. That's done with that. And I offered a seat to my deceased family in the living room and talk to them, ask how they are. Sometimes you get a response. Sometimes they just want to be with you. Yeah. Absolutely. Dawny, having so much Scandinavian DNA, it was lovely to see the group Helen, which was a total surprise in Belgium. I've been more interested in that side of me, using more runes, etc. I think it does open up kind of doorways. I did my DNA test, or got my DNA test results just before we went on our cruise earlier this year. I was very, very surprised to see the coincidences that a big chunk covered Germany and Holland, which is exactly where we went on our cruise. Let's look, he's here. He is back. Look. Hello. Should put your blanket on. You're sitting on it. Yeah. There we go. Yes, he's happy now. and sleep. Yeah, I think it is. I think it explains a few things, or it might confuse you more. I mean, depends on what the results are. Sephora, get those old photographs that relatives have tucked away, digitized. We've been doing that, yes, and into the cloud, so the ancestors are shared to future generations, not thrown out because descendants don't recognize them. I actually have scanned in some of the ones that we have, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and their parents as well, the ones we had. I have scanned them in. I think it is a really good idea to do. So one last folklore tradition for October, all from A Witch for Every Season book, maidens' garlands. So the tradition was that unmarried women that had passed over would have special garlands of white flowers and strips of fabric and ribbon for their funerals. The garlands would be made by friends and carried at the funeral procession, then hung in the church until they disintegrated. St Mary's Church in Yorkshire has examples dating back to 1680. Shakespeare mentions the use of maiden garlands in his play Hamlet. I think that's a really nice idea to create garland of flowers and ribbons, perhaps one flower, one ribbon for each person that's passed over. I think that works quite nice, and that actually brings in a bit of the maiden energy as well, which is interesting to work with. So moon we've mentioned because it's a big old moon. The October moon has lots of different names depending on where you are in the world. The names will have come from location and what was happening with the season. So the October moon was called the hunter's moon in England because October represented a time to hunt, to store away provisions for the cold winter months. It's also called the falling leaf moon because falling leaves. In medieval England, the October moon was called the blood moon. Ancient Celts called the October moon the harvest moon, and I think they're all names linked to hunting for food to store away for the winter. Blood moon because of the blood that was spilt in the hunts, I guess, for they would slaughter a lot of the animals as well to store them for overwinter. And harvest moon kind of makes sense because it celebrates the last harvest. And I think that's important because we tend to pick up the names of these moons and run with them without understanding their origins. And I think it's important to call your moon a name that's relevant to where you are in the world. There's a whole list of moons from Native American traditions. They don't make any sense to me living here in the south of England. I think it's important to have and use a name of the moon that works for you in your area. Yeah, a little bit of a lecture there. Jane, talking of ancient recipes has made me think of French and Saunders' sketch where they were medieval wenches with wooden false teeth complaining food was fresh or not enough urine. Or food must have been pretty awful in those days. I think meats in particular, they didn't have fridges, did they? They didn't have cold storage. It wouldn't have lasted for long. Yeah, no, I'll give that a miss. Before I've been shaking the family tree and have photos that date back to Bradford in the 1870s, taken of family before emigrating to New Zealand. It's fascinating, isn't it? Definitely something that we need to preserve. Dawny, interesting though, none of my family has British English roots, so somewhere in the line either cheating happened or the DNA test is faulty. Need to do another one to make sure. I think it's interesting because England in particular, let's bear in mind that British again is different to English. England in particular was a big old melting pot. We had a lot of people invade, for want of a better word. Romans, Anglo-Saxons, Vikings, all sorts of people. So we are going to be a bit of a pick and mix. Irish, Welsh, Scottish, probably less so pick and mix because they didn't tend to be invaded by the Romans, for instance. They were a little bit less of a mixture, let's say. But I think it's all interesting. I think it's all interesting. bit of an eye-opener. And, perhaps does it give you a place to start as well if you are kind of flapping about looking for a direction, particularly with your spirituality. Perhaps it gives you a little bit of a guideline as well. Bit of a we are Normans as well. Absolutely. We have had all sorts of flavors thrown into the mix. So we do have a bit more of a mixture than perhaps Wales, Scotland, Ireland do. But it's all interesting, all fascinating. So October is, let's have a look. So the full moon in October, brilliant for working with past lives, with astral projection, spirit work, but also really good to work with for protection, for dealing with changes and transformation, I think as well, because we're on that, we're now in the autumn, so we're in that changing season. Visualization, psychic work, obviously, manifesting, honoring your ancestors, and divination. Brilliant for the October full moon. And when we're done with the full moon in October, the waning moon for October, really good for removing obstacles, dealing with change again, banishing things, cleansing, but also really good for reflection and introspection. There is this idea in some camps that Samhain is the end of the Celtic year and the beginning of the new Celtic year. That never really kind of connected with that idea, but if it works for you, it's a really good time for looking back at what you've done and moving forward. But I think Samhain's probably a good idea for that as well. Ancestors, again, I'm just scrolling through these. So, animals to work with in October. Scorpion, because Scorpio, that would be me. Solar magic, but transitions and protection. Bats, because why wouldn't you want to work with bat? Beautiful, mysterious creatures. Intuition for divination, and definitely ancestor work. And of course, the corvid family, crows in particular, knowledge, wisdom, magic, perfect animal to work with for October. Crystals I've noted down in the book for October, opal, because it is the birthstone for the month of October. It's very, very much full of emotions. So it's quite good to clear blockages and release negative feelings. Also good for your psychic abilities. Tourmaline helps you release and let go. Very good for transformations, spiritual connection, astral travel. Fluorite, beautiful stone, very, very much spiritual connection. It can help amplify your spiritual connection. It's also another good one for improving your intuition and breaking patterns, letting go of stuff. Flowers and plants. So cranesbill, wild geranium, mine's still flowering in the garden. Really good for magic of all kinds. The flower, the petals look a bit like a pentagram, so they bring a lot of magic with them. Very good for fertility and love as well. Dogwood, starting to lose its leaves now, and the branches will be beautiful colours. We have a bright red one in the garden. I think dogwood, faithful, loyal, protection. And then hibiscus, Ayers has just finished flowering in the garden. It's a love magic and a bit of the vavavoom energy to it as well. It's also quite a good one to use for calming. But have a look and see what's in your garden. Food-wise for October, pumpkins and squashes, obviously. Save your seeds. The seeds from the pumpkins are really good for abundance. They're really good for healing. I think the pumpkin as well has a really strong crone goddess connection. Garlic, protection, courage, strength, healing. Corn, cornmeal, corn starch, corn on the cob, all brilliant. Corn for me is about gratitude. This is about offerings, gratitude and giving thanks. And nutmeg, which was mentioned earlier, really, really brilliant to work with in October. Very good for good luck, and very good for prosperity as well. So, but look at what's out in nature. Look at what's in season still in the shops, because that'll give you a connection to October. Right. Oh, lots of dots I've missed. Let's go back. Maria. Question: is believing in everything having spirit the same as believing everything has energy? It's kind of a crossover, I think. If you've got a pebble and you can feel the energy field of it, the aura, that's energy. Do you believe it has a spirit? An animist would. Yeah, an animist would believe that it had a spirit to it. I think they're kind of one and the same. I don't know what anybody else thinks. If I'm working with a plant, then I'm working with the energy of the plant, but I'm working with the spirit of that plant. I think there's a bit of crossover there. I don't know what anyone else thinks. Sephora, you only have to listen to Neil Oliver's podcast about history to realize how our DNA is a box of pick and mix. I have several of his books. Those Vikings certainly got about, but fascinating series. Yes, I have listened to some of those. I have got some of his books. Susan, meat would have been salted or smoked. It is a falsehood that AS or medieval food was yuck. It was probably healthier than ours. Well, there's that side of it too, yes. I mean, a lot of it would have been probably on the turn at some point because it didn't have fridges. But yes, I do have medieval recipes and cookbooks, and some of them are, the recipes are amazing. No, there was nothing added to it. There weren't additives, there weren't preservatives, there weren't chemicals put into it all. But I think it would have made a difference where you were in the social chain. If you were higher up the social chain, you would have had quite an interesting and varied diet. If you were lower down it would have been fairly basic, I think. But it's all fascinating. I am fascinated by the history of food. And I do have some medieval cookbooks. Norman's coming over here stealing our castles. Now I've got Monty Python in my head as well. Jane, surprised Roman DNA doesn't crop up more in the pie chart. Perhaps Romans invaded more for political reasons, kept their integrity rather than spreading the love. I think you've nailed it there, really. I don't think there were an awful lot of interrelationships, but hey, what do I know? A little bit, not much. David, the thing about medieval food was how spicy it used to be. Spices were used for health reasons as well as taste. Clothes is a wormer, so does that mean mulled wine was a health drink? I think they used spices to flavour food and to hide perhaps the fact that some of it was on the turn. But again, it would have only been those higher up the social chain because spices were expensive. Do you like a mulled wine though? Don't forget the Greeks. I wouldn't. Beautiful country. I shouldn't be surprised if British is the most fluid nationality because you say this mainland has a lot of invaders. I think it's an interesting word, isn't it? I must admit, I am very much fighting for the England side. I'm very proud to be English, and I think England gets a little bit lost. Hence me writing Gods and Goddesses of England. Because the whole Celtic label, which is a huge label, which covers all sorts of things. Remember that Celts were a pick and mix. And although perhaps I think people tend to think of Celtic as covering Irish and Welsh, it actually covers Irish, Welsh, Scottish, and a load of Europe as well. It's a very misleading label, for want of a better word. But I think English gets a little bit lost in there. So I do fight the corner for English. But yeah, we have had an awful lot of visitors, let's say. Angela, those who've had DNA tests by Ancestry and Similar should go back and look at their pages on the website. Yes, they've been changing lots of the results. I guess as technology improves, as their database widens, they do change. British isn't a race as such. No, it's not. Not like Celtic or Scandinavian. Celtic's not a race either. Celtic is a political collection of people, which is why I always say that I'm English. America, there's no such thing as a British accent. You're thinking of an English accent. Yes. The very plummy accent that one speaks with in all of the films, like the Queen, is a very upper-class English accent. The Cockney accent that Dick Van Dyke uses in Mary Poppins is very specific to one area of London. But there are a huge amount of regional accents right across England, from down in the west country, down and right up to the north. There's all sorts of different dialects. But yes, the plummy voice that the Queen used to speak with is very upper class English. My Mr. Figgy is only just leaving his leaf. My little fig tree's still got its leaves in the garden. Blue blueberry's leaves turned a gorgeous crimson, but the pink blueberry doesn't do anything interesting. Oh, plants fascinate me. Definitely fascinating. Zephora, don't forget to make places for nature. Yeah, don't clear out stuff. Leave it all there for them till kind of overwintering. Jane, I think anima is Latin for soul. That would make sense. That would make sense. Hi, Louise. Emma, because my apple tree still has apples on it during this time, I use apples in my workings. Totally the right time of the year for apples. Very, very magical. They do have the pentagram inside them. Very, very otherworldly. Apples are very much connected to Avalon and the other world. David, you have to remember the average Roman soldier wasn't Italian. No, there's that too. They took soldiers from one side of the empire and shipped them off to the other side. So you'd likely find more African DNA in the UK than Mediterranean from that period. You will also find there's African DNA in a lot of folk because that's where humans originated from. But yeah, the Romans weren't just Romans. They employed people from all across different places, different countries. Yeah, absolutely. They didn't have best before dates, no, back in medieval times. Yeah, there's all sorts. Well, yes, there is. I mean, I do like the royal family. I am a very, very much supportive that we should have the royal family. I think they do a huge amount of work. But yeah, the DNAs from the royals would be interesting because the Queen's husband was Greek. Albert, Queen Victoria's husband, he was German, so got him to thank for bringing Christmas trees in, so we like him. Yeah, it is. We're a pick and mix, definitely a pick and mix. But it's a fascinating month. The energies are amazing. They are autumnal, but they are very much about celebrating those that those that have gone before us. Whether it is in the form of friends and family that you knew, or whether it is even further back. Definitely a month for honouring those that have passed. So for anyone that's local, tomorrow, Heather and I will be in Raw Eden Apothecary in Wickham. We will be reading all day. I'll be reading the tarot. Heather will be reading the bones. They're opening their new venue, so we'll be there all day tomorrow. I have no idea what else is on. But there's all sorts of stuff. I've got several courses running at the College of Psychic Studies, so have a look on my website for that, for details on that. We've got all sorts of events planned for next year. We are almost fully booked for next year already, which is fabulous. Good points for it. Yes, there is a competition running. If you have a look on my Facebook page or the Kitchen Witch Common Facebook page, I'm running a little competition to name this, to name what we do here every week. It needs a name. It needs a bit of an identity. So there's a competition running to
Margaret.
Margaret. Thank you. That's very useful. And I'll send a little gift to the name that we end up picking. So if you think of anything, we've had some good ones in so far. On the Facebook pages. If you don't have Facebook, message me. And I'll put you into the draw. We'll see what we come up with. And then we'll have a bit of an identity. So thank you, everyone, as always. If you're looking for a Hedge Witch book, pop on over to Phoenix Flames and pre-order a copy, or pre-order a signed copy from me from the Kitchen Witch online shop. Pre-orders in particular really help when it's a small independent publisher. They are really, really important. So if you fancy the Hedge Witch book, do please pop on over and pre-order. And thank you for all the well wishes for Pete. He is better today than he was yesterday. Yesterday he was just out of it for the entire day. But he is upright today. Just a bonus. So thank you, everyone. Have a fabulous week, and I will see you all again next time. Oh, we're going to get Eric. Look, here's Eric. Let's get you up to say goodbye. There you are. There you are. Take care, everyone.